You're watching BreakThru News.
I'm Charlotte Thun-Hohenstein, and you're watching BreakThru News on BTR Today. Today we're talking about a rather unusual form of adventure sport, trials riding, which is motorcycle riding that at times can be even slower than walking, but obviously there's a lot more to it than that. With me to discuss is Gary LaPlante, the founder of Moto Ventures out in California, which specializes in dirt bike riding, training and tours, and Gary himself has trained thousands of people and even reached ninth in the national rankings for motorcycle racing. So thank you very much, Gary, for joining me today. First of all, what's the best thing that you get out, before we talk about trials riding, let's just talk a bit about dirt riding, because your motto is dirt first, right? So what's the most important thing about dirt riding? Why did you get hooked on it?
Well, dirt bikes are just a lot of fun. I mean, that's how it all started. It's because of dirt bikes and an upbringing that I had in dirt bike riding and trials riding. That's opened a lot of doors for me in the motorcycle industry. I've had some great jobs and professional racer, rider, model, all that kind of stuff because of the skills that riding a dirt bike has done for me. And so and dirt bikes and trials bikes even further, taking it to another degree with the trials bikes. And so and as far as the name Dirt First, that's the name we've just recently adopted to describe our training business. And so our motto is we use dirt bikes to teach people how to ride motorcycles. And so that's the perfect tool, and everybody knows that. It's funny how everybody knows it, everybody agrees, but not many people are offering dirt bikes like myself and teaching people how to ride. So we want to get the word out to street bike riders and dual sport riders, and so that's why we adopted the name Dirt First, to ring true to those people, to start in the dirt or tell their friends to, but also dirt is the best place to take your riding to the next level, regardless of what you ride now.
So let's talk a bit about trials riding, which is very, very curious to me. It's basically, as I understand it, you're taking your motorcycle over natural terrain, sometimes literally up a sheer rock face, and you're actually moving very, very slowly to navigate these obstacles. And in order to do so, you have to strip the bike down to absolutely bare minimum. The riders don't even have a seat, so they're just standing on it the whole time, and the bike is extremely, extremely light, and sometimes you're moving it as low as 5 miles an hour. It sounds very extreme. Do you find this to be more difficult than just riding a motorcycle at speed?
Oh, clearly, trials riding is the most difficult thing you can do on a motorcycle, probably, when you think about it. To ride a motorcycle seriously is to go nowhere fast. One of my favorite quotes, and clearly it's a great skill builder. I mean, if you can have great skills at a low speed, I can teach you how to ride fast. It's much more difficult for me to take somebody who only knows how to ride fast and to teach them how to ride slow. Not only that, but your learning process is a little less harmful. If you can learn things at a low speed and develop your skills at a low speed, you're less likely to get hurt. It's, as you know, when you make a mistake at a higher speed, it's much more consequential. And so it's kind of the correct order of things, if you know what I mean.
There's an article on it in Wired that describes it as either the pinnacle of two-wheeled badassery or the dangerous product of gearheads with more ambition than brains, which I thought is a very comical quote. Do you have an opinion on that?
The sport began in England, I think. Just like everything else, there was one motorcycle, and everybody did everything with that one motorcycle, and so over time, the motorcycles evolved and became more specialized, and so it's a sport. I mean, you got to remember it's a competition, and so the name of the game, what the bike is designed for, is yes, to ride over incredibly rocky terrain and all, but the name of the game in the sport is to not fall down and not go out of bounds and not put your foot down, more importantly, because when you do, you lose points. And at the end of the day, the person with the least amount of points is the one who wins the contest. So I don't know how to weigh in on those opinions. I just know that it's I don't know. personally, I'm attracted to incredible challenge. I'm that type of person, and there's a lot of people out there like me that really embrace trials. And and we're seeing it in enduro cross racing these days because all the top riders are trials riders or come from trials backgrounds and extreme enduro too. So the benefits are obvious.
Well, it sounds like if you can ride a trials bike, you know how to ride a motorcycle really, really well.
Yeah, clearly, yeah.
We are going to take a break. We'll be right back in a moment after this special edition of Live Studio this week in honor of Veterans Day featuring Emily Wills. We'll be right back.
In your bag, it was dirty and we were always dreaming a day that never comes.
And we are back talking about what some would call the most extreme form of motorcycle riding, trials riding, with Gary LaPlante. Gary, what's the most important thing for a beginner at this to keep in mind?
A beginner at trials or a beginner at motorcycle riding?
Well, let's say both, if it's different.
Well, it's quite different. Trials bikes are very specialized and frankly weird and very difficult for most beginners, raw beginners, to get on and ride. For one thing, you don't sit down. You can't sit down. There's no seat. You ride them standing up the whole time, and so they're really not the best tool for a beginner to use. I recommend that you know how to ride a motorcycle, and better yet, know how to ride a dirt bike to get the best advantage at learning how to ride a trials bike. For those people who want to learn to ride a motorcycle, as we discussed, a dirt bike is the best tool for that, for sure. And best advice I can give someone, the first thing is that they should make sure that they're sitting completely forward on the seat. I know that sounds funny, but people, one mistake that happens over and over again and can be actually quite funny and can be harmful at times is they get that unintended acceleration for their first experience. And I know there's people out there who are going to be laughing because they've had this happen, and it's totally avoidable. So if anybody hears this, my advice for any newbie, a beginner of any kind, is number one, get on a dirt bike, but number two, scoot your butt all the way forward on the seat and lean forward when you're letting out the clutch and giving it some throttle. And that simple piece of advice will save a lot of trouble. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, do you find that when it comes to, let's say, dirt bikes, that people often get in over their heads at the beginning, or is there a sense of sometimes maybe taking the motorcycle for granted and not understanding the role that you have to play, and even like what you're describing, like leaning forward and taking more control over it? Do you find that, or not so much?
Oh, all the time. People are, riding a motorcycle isn't hard. Riding one correctly is. And for most people, they can get on a bike and just go. And we see it all the time where people that are new to the sport, they'll go out and buy a bike that's completely inappropriate for them. And our motto in general is that you'll learn more and you'll actually learn it faster if you go down a size or two on your bike. So the temptation is for people to read a magazine story or some news about the latest bike that Honda, Yamaha, Kawasaki is putting out, and it's winning all the magazine tests, and boy, that's what they're going to buy. But it's like a motocross bike these days. They're incredible racing machines, and they're not friendly, and they're not the best bike to learn on. The best bike to learn on is a dirt bike, a recreational bike, not a motocross bike. And that's a common mistake right there. We see all the time.
So it's absolutely not one bike fits all? Because it is quite tempting for someone who knows nothing about this, like myself. You just sort of look at a motorcycle and you think it's a machine. I can just turn it on and it'll move me around and I'll steer it, and there's this assumption that pretty much one bike fits all, but that seems like it's not the case.
Well, there's a lot of choices these days, and as time goes on, the differences between a dirt bike and a motocross bike and a dual sport bike are growing. The gap is widening. A motocross bike is, like I said, it's a pure racing machine, and you better hang on. A dual sport bike is it's a compromise. It's made for street and dirt. It's always going to be a compromise. People just, as much as possible, they need to try to identify exactly how they're going to ride, where they're going to ride, when they're going to ride, and pick the right tool. Of course, that it helps for them to get the right advice, and that's what we do a lot of, is we dispense advice and try to save people trouble.
So Gary, we're going to wrap up in just a moment. I have one more question for you, and you've actually touched on this a little bit, but what in your mind is the future of trials riding in the US? You mentioned that it was more popular in Europe already, but how do you see this evolving?
Well, I think I think the trials has got nothing but room to grow. It's fairly small now. It was bigger back in the 70s when the Japanese manufacturers all had trials bikes. But yeah, I think there's a bright future for trials, and like I said, endurocross racing has shed the light on it, on the value of it. Things like land closures and higher gas prices are gonna bring about trials. Someday, hopefully, we'll start having trials bikes will show up in dealerships, and you'll be able to go to an average motorcycle retailer, and actually see a trials bike. And you know what? Here's a thought. Electric bikes, they're becoming very popular, and trials is a great sport for an electric bike, and we're already seeing some nice prototypes out there. And when you think about it, if you took the noise away from the sport and you took the pollution away from the sport, you could have trials inside a building or at a basketball court in an inner city. So yeah, I mean, and with the exciting sports, extreme sports like bicycle sports and skateboard sports, I just see nothing but growth in trials.
Well, that sounds very exciting. It sounds like a sort of mega obstacle course for motorcycles, which, if I knew how to ride a motorcycle, would be a lot of fun. But thank you so much, Gary. We'll be right back in a moment after this quick excerpt from a bonus edition of BTR Live Studio this week on BreakThruRadio.com featuring Reindeer. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. Be sure to check out BreakThruRadio.com through the weekend for our continued Obstacle Week coverage, including our story on the non-profit Pennsylvanian supermarket chain, what it must do to become sustainable, and how it may change the grocery game. That's it for us here at Breakthru News. Tell us what's breaking through your world on Twitter @BreakThruRadio. I'm Charlotte Thun-Hohenstein, and thank you for joining us.